Hey guys, it's Ben with Design3 here, and I'm talking to Ryan Arndt, who is the Global Community Manager of the IGDA. How you doing today, Ryan?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. So how did you first start playing video games? What are some of your all-time favorite games?
The first game I ever played was my family had an Atari 2600, because I've got a brother who's 9 years older than me. And so that was my introduction. And so Jumpman was the game that I really loved and still love, but now the Atari's broken. So I can't play it anymore, and I've yet to find a good version online at all. So that was one of my favorites. Then moving on from there, I've always been into Mario. Anything Mario has been good. And then I went to Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and then for a couple of years didn't really do much because I like Super Nintendo. I loved that sort of thing. It was just, there's that time, I guess teenage years or whatever, I just didn't, I never found, like I'm not a big Call of Duty kind of player. Yeah, so it was a lot of time until basically the iPhone came along when I started playing more games again, so.
And how did you first get started in video game development?
Well, I've been writing music through my computer since I was 15, and so there was I had this keyboard I got for Christmas when I was 15, and it had MIDI ports on the back, and I was just like, what are those things? And so I started investigating and using freeware to just write music through it and doing that. So over time, practicing and meeting people, I started doing audio and like game audio, like soundtracks and the sound design as well. And so doing that and just starting to get to know people, and because I'm from Vancouver and the community there, I'd kind of like get to know people there, and just be like, hey, I'll write your game for you, and I'll write your music for you, and do this, do that. And I did one of the things that really helped, I don't know if it'll work for everybody, I did a pay what you want version for a while. When Radiohead did it with their album, I was like, that's a really good idea. And it worked pretty well, because it was like, here's your range. And then I was like, you can pay me whatever you want in that range, but this is like me breaking even, like barely getting enough, and then this is you paying way too much. And it's like, you can decide after I'm all done, based on the service and how happy you are with it, you decide where it goes in there. And people always paid top. They chose to, which was great. So, yeah.
And how did you break into the industry? Like, what was your first job?
My first job, so I went to Art Institute, and I did an internship at 29 Productions, which is a ringtone studio. They did events as well. So I was writing ringtones for mobile phones back when it was before MP3s, where the phones couldn't run them. And so I'd be like just listening to top 40 tracks and like trying to rewrite them and like catch the hook and then rewrite it. And then it would be output into like 14 different versions. And each version had to be made on like a different freeware version of thing. And those things, oh, it was so awful. And so yeah, after that, when the MP3s came along, when the iPhone came along, that games could now run on mobile, that kind of thing. So I got into doing mobile development and audio development just for like casual iPhone titles. So that was where the direction things were going, so thank God.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but like, is there any common kind of audio challenges you run into? I know optimization is a big thing for audio.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the tricky things I found, like it's been a while since I'm doing the like audio dev, because I don't do it as much now, but when I was doing it, like iPhone could never really do the interactive audio stuff. It was always just kind of like, here, play your MP3, whatever. And then, which is all fine, but I mean, the loops on MP3s, you always get, it's never quite tight enough. So even your track's always gonna, and then the bit rate was low. So I've had just like I was like, oh, this is such a rich, great sound, and now I have to reduce it so much. So it sounds like, it's supposed to be a dog bark or something, right? So, yeah, I mean, but that's on any platform. You still have to like, because audio is always, this happens all the time on any sort of audio-related thing, it's always left to last. And people are just like, it's not that important, but I mean, you could, if it was involved in game design right from the beginning, it could be like so much better than saying like, hey, the player, we should like have a little prompt, tell them to do this. It's like, no, you could have like a little sound over there from around the corner that would tell them, hey, maybe I should go over there. Like you can do so much more than people give it credit for a lot of time.
Can you tell us a little bit about like some of the software you used when you were making music?
Yeah, it was Logic and Pro Tools. I mean, pretty standard stuff. This was in '07, so it was pretty standard thing to use those things.
Cool. So you're now the global community manager for the IGDA.
Yes.
How did you kind of make that transition from doing the audio stuff over to the IGDA?
Sure. So what I did was audio, as I was saying, since it's the end of people's projects, people don't think it's sometimes that big of a deal. They're like, oh, they can make it really fast. And no, you can't make it really fast. It's hard. It's hard work to write it and make it sound good and fit the game and everything like that. So audio work was like this, and then no work, too much work, and then no work, too much work. And so I started filling in the gaps with social media, because this was 2009 by this time. And I've been trying to get a job in the industry in Vancouver for a long time. And Vancouver was very core heavy at the time. And I had casual experience, right? So it was like, no one's very often hiring an in-house composer or audio designer. It's very tough to get into that spot. So I started filling in with social media and community management and just doing it game industry related, and then just kind of like within the Vancouver scene, just kind of kept going, and then did it for the Canadian Video Game Awards, and then Casual Connect, and then now IGDA.
Can you tell us what you do for the IGDA as the global community manager?
Sure, yeah. So there are chapters, like local chapters of game developers around the world. There's over 110 chapters, and in countries all over. And so I help them to organize well and kind of support their industry locally. And so if they need something from the IGDA Central, I can be like, hey, we need to do this. Or if it's like, the board, we would really be able to do things better here if this would just be changed. And I'm like, hey, board, can we just change this so it can, work better for the actual people who are on the ground, right? So it's kind of like the ear in between. So I'd keep my ear to the ground and feed it back to the board. So that's what community management is, right? So that's why I do community and social media management, because I don't just do that part and relay things back, but I also run all the Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. And then do memberships and all the evil back-end stuff that you have to do with that too.
Yeah. The IGDA is a great organization to be a part of, and some people might not know that you can actually work as a volunteer for them. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to volunteer, there's special interest groups, which are like the chapters, except they exist mostly online. And this event we're at now, Leadership Forum, has been organized by the production SIG. So a whole bunch of video game producers from all over the industry come together and they organize events like this. And so there's a writing special interest group, there's a game audio one, there is game design, there's art. So you can come in that way and volunteer there, or you can volunteer locally in your chapters. So it depends how you want to fit it together. And then there's some instances where local chapters have SIG events there, where they'll have a Women in Games meetup. That's this is in Boston, there's one. There's a Women in Games meetup that's part of the chapter. So it's kind of like a mix of both. So they keep in contact with Boston chapter and with the Women in Games SIG. So.
Yeah, and how important do you think these kind of communities of game developers are to the game industry as a whole?
Super duper. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm very biased, but if you're not helping each other, this even came up in the last talk I was listening to. It's we need to be sharing more. So if we're not, I mean, we're all just basically recreating the wheel all the time. And it's especially with production practices and things, as Keith was mentioning here. So if oh, I'm having that problem, and if somebody else would just, oh, I've already went through this, and just share that information and not be so scared of the NDAs, stuff like that, because you can share so much. We have so much more in common than we do not in common. So we just got to be able to get out of our bubbles and move forward and say, hey, I can help, and move the whole industry forward and help each other, instead of just kind of keep within the studio and then the project ends and then it's restart. So, yeah.
And what advice would you give to people who want to get started in the video game industry themselves?
Find something that you're really good at, in the sense that, so what really broke it for me was when I was doing audio forever and not really doing much with it. I was just I did 15 games, but I was pounding my head on the wall, just trying to get contracts and work. And what I finally came down to was just well, social media was coming up. And so I was this is gonna work, and I need to do something that I'm really terrible at, not being myself. And social media allows you to just kind of bleh, right? And be crazy or whatever. And so it's worked really well for me. I think it's a timing thing too. But I mean, I think the best part and the best advice I could give to people is to know yourself, and then move forward from there.
And if you had to sum up video game design and development in just one word, what would that one word be?
Probably, oh, not the word probably.
kind of a tricky question.
Yeah, I know. So I would think in one word, passion? Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of different people coming, a lot of different ends. Like I've met people in the industry who they're part of a studio that their sibling has started, but they're working at the thing and they're like, I don't really like it here. And I'm just like, then get out. You're not letting somebody who wants to be here in, you know? So that's always frustrating to me when I see that people who don't want to be there. It's just like, there's so many people who do, like, just move and help them.
Right.
Yeah, because that's, there's so many people who are just passionate about wanting to do the work and contribute, and they're like, I have so much I want to give, and they're just not being able to. So that's, so I think passion.
All right, well that brings us to the end of the interview, and
Cool.
Thanks a lot, Ryan, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man.